Hello, Lee from Tales of Whatever here. Just a quick reminder that if you enjoy the show, you can donate to support us and our performers at ko-fi.com/Tales of Whatever. Now, over to Mark for the show.
Hello and welcome to Tales of Whatever Lockdown Extremely Online mini video webcam at home special thing, episode 2. It's a very strong title and we're sticking with it. My name is Mark and I am the founder and co-host of Tales of Whatever live shows when we get to do them, which we currently cannot, and hence this. I normally co-host those shows along with Tales of Whatever producer Lee Moore. His dulcet tones you would have heard doing the voiceover parts on the last one of these that we uploaded, episode 1. We did them off camera on that occasion, and I think we both agreed afterwards it felt a bit weird, so starting this week we are doing these in-betweeny bits, as they're known in the biz, on camera. So, hi. Tales of Whatever is a true storytelling organisation working predominantly but not exclusively with comedians from all kinds of different backgrounds. Some of them will be very seasoned, road-hardened kind of touring comics, and others might work in different fields or just be sort of more general performers from a range of different disciplines. Regardless, we ask them all to share with us a 10-minute true story about themselves on pretty much any topic. The only rules are that it has to be a first-hand experience that they themselves have had, and that it has to be about 10 minutes long, give or take. Other than that, we don't really impose any sort of restrictions on what they might want to choose to share with us. So that means we ourselves very seldom know what the acts are going to talk about before they start, and that probably serves as quite an effective way of introducing the idea of a guidance and content warning tip. Warning's probably a bit strong. A lot of this stuff will be entirely PG, some of it less so. So, bear in mind that this is a storytelling show, but it's a storytelling show that normally happens at night in a bar, so adjust your expectations and swear filters accordingly. With all that said, we are delighted to bring you 3 more true stories this week. We've got stories of bikinis and bouncers and bipolar and boarding schools, so very much brought to you by the letter B, purely by coincidence. We'll say it's a tribute to the late great Bill Withers, sadly missed already. This week's stories, they're from Jayne Pritchard, they're from Cordelia Graham, and first they're from Kate McCabe. Kate McCabe is a long-time friend of the show, fantastic comedian and improviser with the wonderful Comedy Sports UK team. They are just great, and we're really pleased to have Kate with us on the show. So take it away, Kate. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Kate McCabe. Hope everyone is feeling happy and healthy and safe as much as they can in this quarantine lockdown time that we're all going through. I thought I'd share a little tale about an unusual job I almost had once. I remember jobs. I haven't had one in a couple weeks because I'm a freelancer, but I do remember. And I had an interesting opportunity when I graduated from university. Took me down a real weird rabbit hole that was pretty exciting for a while. I went to university, I went to NYU in New York City with a degree in acting. That's not a proper degree where you get out of university and you have a great job opportunity immediately. That's the kind of degree that's like a dream chasing degree. So when you walk out of university with your diploma, you've got to get a job bartending or doing something or temping whilst you continue to chase your dream. Or if you give up on your dream, you can go get a normal job. But I needed something that was flexible at the time. I wanted to be able to pursue stand-up comedy and or take the odd audition if I ever went for an audition. So I needed something with flexible hours. I went and I got a newspaper and I looked at the classifieds because that's how we used to find jobs back in the late 90s. It was still mostly in print. So I went and I saw a job listing for a security guard. And I thought, that's interesting. That'll have flexible hours as listed in the description. And I thought I could do that. And you might look at me and you might think, you don't strike me as a security guard type person. But I want to remind you, this was several years ago. I was around 21, so I was a little bit leaner and meaner. And back in those days, I was actually studying karate and taekwondo and things like that. And I had a black belt in karate. I was regularly taking boxing classes. So I felt confident, not like, oh, they're going to put me to guard a military fortress kind of confident, but I thought as a woman anyway, they're just gonna plonk me in one of the gentler jobs. Like I'll be a security guard wearing a sweater vest at a library. That type of job is what they're gonna give me. So I applied and I got a response. And they invited me for an interview in a high-rise of offices in Midtown Manhattan. And I got there, and the guy interviewing me, and who ran this security agency, he was called Otis Walker, and he was a fast-talking New Yorker with a flat cap. He was right out of Central Casting, a real kind of archetype. And he goes, "Okay, Kate, says here, you're an actress." I was like, "Yes, I am. I just graduated from a theater department. Thank you very much." And he goes, "Okay, says here you're a bartender too." And I was like, "I am a bartender. I graduated with an acting degree, so I immediately went and got a bartending certificate because I need to get a job." And he goes, "Perfect. I got a perfect job for you, as long as you don't mind wearing a bathing suit." And that didn't make me pause at all, because I'm 21. I'm still full of positivity. In my head, I'm thinking, sure, I can wear a Speedo. I'm thinking like an Olympic bathing suit, like a swimmer would wear. And I'm thinking, it's a security guard. He wants me to be a lifeguard. I can be a lifeguard. That's fine. I can wear a bathing suit. Yes, I can wear a bathing suit. And he goes, "Okay, great. I can't tell you any more about it. It is highly confidential. I got to send you to another address." So he takes a piece of paper, writes down an address, another high-rise in Midtown Manhattan. I go find it, and this one is like a block of apartments. So I go up to the 40th floor where this apartment is. I go and knock on the door. It's at the end of the corridor. And I go, I hear from the other side and this gruff voice kind of barks at me and goes, "Who is it?" And I go, "This is Kate McCabe. Mr. Otis Walker sent me over." And it's like lock, latch, chain, bolt, lock, chain, bolt, all these things opening up on the other side. And this grizzled, gruff, short-haired, flannel-wearing butch lesbian peers out and goes, "Come in." And so immediately on looking at her, I was like, it's going to be fine. It's my people. Everything's going to come out okay. She explains it's not quite a security guard position that they're offering. It's undercover work. Sometimes businesses are having problems like theft, for instance, which was what was happening in this case. Someone was stealing from inside the company. And for whatever reason, either they don't want to involve the police because maybe it doesn't justify having police involvement, or they don't want to involve the police for other reasons. So what she explains is it's a strip club, and someone is on the take from inside the strip club. Someone who works there, money is going missing. And they don't know who it is, and you need to get a job there and be undercover as a bartender. She said, "You're not going to be a stripper, don't worry. You're going to be a bartender, and you will make mad money, because not only would I get a day shift, I would also get paid the same amount as a day shift from the detective agency, and I would get paid to write up journal entries, because as the bartender, I'm there to make the drinks, but also to observe what's happening so they can crack this case. So for every one of my little rat fink narc diary entries, that also netted me money, and this was a very high-rolling strip club, so I'd be making bank, right? Like $100, $200, $300 tips. This was Scores. Scores, for those of you who didn't live in Manhattan in the late 90s, was the high-end strip club. I think it was the first strip club that served like steak dinners with like Chateaubriand options, or like a Chateauneuf de Pop Red to wash it down, popping bottles of champagne. People like Howard Stern, the Yankees, George Clooney. That's where they would go to get high-end tits and ass, right? A lot of money spent there. So Scores. Undercover bartender, keep a rat fink diary, make a load of money, but I can't just give you the job. You've got to go and talk to the owner of Scores, right? She took my fingerprints so that she could run like an FBI database check and make sure I was clean and everything, which made it feel crazy. But I go to this other high rise, my third high rise of the day in Midtown Manhattan, and this one is really swank office spaces, and this office is like towards the top of the building. Guy in a pinstripe suit, really well dressed, very harried though. You can tell he didn't have much time for me. He was running his business. He probably owned a billion other things. And he goes, okay, well, obviously I can't just plant you in this job. You have to get the job legitimately via interview so that there's no suspicion around your true identity. And he goes, all I'm going to say to you is know your drinks when you go in and wear something sexy. And that was the hard part. I knew my drinks. This look sexy. I don't have a lot of high femme clothes. I had to go really into the deep recesses of my closet to find something that I could wear for this interview. So I found some stuff that I think I'd had because when I graduated, I got headshots. So I wore essentially what I would wear to get headshots done. So I had like this kind of womanly fitting kind of blouse that was like short sleeve and buttoned down and a nice collar. And like really tight kind of like bronzy copper brocade patterned yope pants. I think it's pronounced yope. It's spelled jupe, but I think it's pronounced yope, that I had purchased at Century 21, which was like high-end fashion for bargain basement prices. So those yope trousers. And then the only kind of like nice shoe I had was this ankle boot with a little bit of a Cuban heel on. So it gave me a little bit of a lift, but just a little Cuban heel. And I slapped some lipstick on and some eyeshadow, and I took a handbag, and I normally carry a rucksack, but this time I took a handbag, and I doing a little walk down to Scores. And I get there, and it's like this, the day manager is wearing a tuxedo. It's that kind of place, right? And he sits me down for this interview, and he goes, okay, you want to be a bartender here? I need to quiz you on the top drinks here that our high-flying clientele tend to order at this establishment. And he goes, okay, so what's in a martini? And I tell him what's in a martini and what's in a Rob Roy and this and that. And I'm looking around as he's interviewing me, and I see there's a bartender who is kind of stalking the bar for the shift. And I observe what she's wearing, and I'm like, what's this swimsuit they want me to wear? What's that look like? And it's not a swimsuit, guys. It is a tuxedo top, and it's sleeveless, so it's just kind of like a tuxedo husk. And there's a window for the boobs cut out, so there's a hole there. And she's wearing a cummerbund and a thong, which is uncomfortable, right? A thong and fishnet tights, so like a magician's assistant fishnet tights. And then she's wearing the spikiest stiletto heel I've ever seen. And that's when it clicks. I'm like, I 10 bar in Doc Martens and in sneakers. And I look at her, and the guy's still asking me drink questions. And he goes, okay, well, what's in a mimosa? I just looked at him and I said, gin and lager. I can't tend heels. I can't 10 bar in high heels, guys. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I couldn't spend 8 hours on my feet in high heels. As a woman, my body resisted. I blew the interview. I got out of there. Nothing had scared me up until that point. Nothing. Not the fact that I was going to be undercover. Not that it was a strip club. Not that I was potentially, narking someone to prison. And not even the fact that Scores was well known to be owned by the mafia. Not even that scared me. But women's fashion, especially women's fashion geared to attract men and put women in uncomfortable positions, no. There's not enough money in the world, guys, to make me wear high heels. Anyway, that's where my line was drawn. And I lived to see another day. That same detective called me back later on to let me know I didn't get the job. Surprise. And then offered me a similar type position. She said, but this time it's not a strip club. It's on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And it's a fraternity bar. And I said, oh, no thank you. And that was the last time I had that brush with danger. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope you all continue to stay safe and healthy. And I hope I see you all at live gigs when this is all done. Bye for now.
That was Kate McCabe. Thank you very much, Kate. We will include links to where you can find out more about all of our performers in the descriptions and things like that. You can follow us on Twitter, and we'll get all the links in. Now it's probably actually a really good time to say, if you're enjoying the live shows, please give us a like and subscribe to the feed, and get your little notification bell icon clicked so that you don't miss any future installments. It's really helpful to us. It makes us a bit more visible, and the main thing is actually, I think we need to get to a really embarrassingly small number of subscribers in order to be assigned a proper URL for the channel, because at the moment it's just a mess of letters and numbers. So help us out with that. That would be really fantastic, and we'll keep doing these weekly if we possibly can. Next story is from Amanda Jayne Pritchard, and I did say that there would be the occasional sort of content warning. It's probably just it's a mild trigger warning in this one. It's a story predominantly about mental health, and it does include references to sort of self-harm and suicide very briefly. None of it is explicit, but the warning's there if you want it. Amanda Jayne Pritchard, we love to pieces. We've worked with her at Edinburgh and I think Leicester comedy festivals. She is a comedian, writer, performer, theatre maker, doing all kinds of wonderful, exciting stuff. Very talented, very great. And thank you again, Amanda, for being on the show. Over to Amanda.
Hi guys, Amanda Jayne Pritchard here, coming at you from Self-Isolation HQ in Kensington. I'm very pleased to be sharing a tale with you for the guys at Tales of Whatever. And I thought I'd make it a musical one. The problem is I actually can't play this. No, but it does make an excellent fashion accessory. So I might just put it aside. So what I thought I would share with you is this tale about a very important time for me, a revelationary moment of my life actually, when I was diagnosed with bipolar. Now, the thing with bipolar is they call it a disorder. I now like to look at it as more of a mental health issue and something that I can manage. I don't see it as a disorder so much, but if I look at my life pre the diagnosis, yes, you could call it disordered. In fact, you might call it utterly freaking crazy. So if I graphed my life before the diagnosis, it literally looked like the boom and bust of an economic cycle. I had an amazing first really huge crash in 2008, an epic fall from grace in 2010, probably 4 or 5 massive rapid cycles of ups and downs between 2011 and 2014, and then that final massive horrific crash in 2015, which led me to finally going to a psychiatrist and seeking some help. When I'm in the low parts, which I haven't actually experienced despite loads of setbacks since the diagnosis, the door is some sort of barrier I can't get past. I don't leave the house for months, literally months. I loathe myself to the point of thinking about killing myself. And in fact, I've attempted suicide twice, and the first time I woke up in hospital and the look on my mother's face was the personification of disappointment. So yes, years of horrific depressions. I would go from a size 8 to 18, which made it even worse because so much of who I am is in my body image. But then all of a sudden a switch would kind of go off and I'd start making plans and I would start exercising. Oh, I'm going to run a marathon. And the fat would literally just vanish and I would start to socialize again. And I'm kind of, I'm just doing this. And then, of course, it goes out of the normal sphere, or what's normal really, but let's say this is equilibrium. A usual high for someone might be you got a new job. A usual low might be you've lost your mother or father. So this is where you go in high and this is where you go in low. And that's not normal. So the highs, wow. Well, I thought what I might do is actually read you the letter which I managed to get from Dr. Wilde. Yes, that's his name, my psychiatrist who diagnosed me with bipolar. And this is the letter that he wrote to my Dr. Libby, my GP who had referred me. Dear Libby, thank you for your referral of Amanda, who I agree does definitely have bipolar disorder, characterized by recurrent, extended periods of depression, which she has been treated for on and off with antidepressants since her early 20s. In contrast, she has what appear to be definite and quite protracted hypomanic episodes in which her mood is elevated. She is energetic, driven, and motivated. She socializes more, has increased sex drive, will not sleep for extended periods of time, spends more, and takes a variety of financial, business, and personal risks. There has been a significant cost to these periods of elevated mood, including the loss of 2 marriages due to an affair with a co-worker, being fired from a number of senior level positions in PR and events, the destruction of businesses she created in part due to her hypomania, and almost needing to declare bankruptcy. During Amanda's periods of hypomania, she has a busy mind with a proliferation of ideas, even to the extent that she takes her phone to the shower in case she could not record her brilliant ideas. Now, all of that is true, and I will make an argument with Dr. Wilde, who says that they aren't brilliant ideas, because I did create some pretty amazing things during my elevated mood. The problem was I went way too far. Since my diagnosis, things have changed markedly for me, and there are a number of things that I know I need to do and I need to be vigilant about. And I know anyone out there listening knows about mental health, whether it's them, whether it's their brother, their sister, their auntie, their mother, their father, their daughter, their son, their friend. And what kept me down so low was shame. When I was low, oh no, I wouldn't tell people I was low. I had glandular fever one time. Another time, I moved overseas. I didn't move overseas. I was in bed. I just couldn't bear not being perfect, not being brilliant. And so the number one thing that Dr. Wilde told me was that medication will help you. I refused it, absolutely refused it. In fact, I was just so scared because there's a thing about bipolar. There's a piece of graffiti in Collingwood where I lived in Australia for a time, and it says, "I hate bipolar, it's awesome." And this is the thing, down there, it's horrific. And up there, you feel like Superwoman. And the one thing that scares you is that you be medicated and you become a zombie. And all this brilliant stuff is just gonna go away. In the end, I took the medication and it changed my life. But it wasn't just that. It was me telling people. I slowly built a support network of people around me and told them about my issues and gave them my warning signs. And then I started writing plays about myself and about a character who had bipolar. And then I changed that to do stand-up comedy where I talked openly about my own bipolar and my issues and how I manage it. And it's the honesty and telling stories, the darkest stuff, that I managed to do with trying to keep it light as well, that's the main thing that's changed my career, and it's why I'm here making this video for you. I'm going to make more, and I hope I'll be able to do more, specifically talking about some of those moments in my life, the specific times of depression or highs, because I have to tell you, bipolar, it really is amazing when you manage it, and Jesus Christ, it gives you some good stories.
Thank you, Amanda. Fantastic, as ever. Lovely. Our next story is going to be from Cordelia Graham, who is somebody that we met, I think, at last year's Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Could have been the year before. I think it was the one just gone. We put on about 150 slots during the festival when we do this show every day for a month. So it gets kind of confusing trying to remember who exactly we met at which one. But we distinctly recall being struck by... There's a great thing when Cordelia started telling her story, it immediately felt like you were gossiping with a mate that you'd known for way, way longer. So we are delighted to have Cordelia back on the show, and I'm going to hand it over to Cordelia. Cordelia Graham, thank you.
Hi, I'm Cordelia Graham, and I'm going to tell you about the time I went to boarding school. So, I was 15 years old, and I really wanted a boyfriend. I'd never had a boyfriend, but I really wanted one. I'd read a lot about them in Sugar magazine. I'd read a lot of articles about how to get a boyfriend, like 10 ways to snare a lush lad, or like how to tell that he thinks that you should be mates and not his GF, or what he really thinks of you, stuff like that. But I'd never had a boyfriend. Probably because I was a massive geek. Like, I used to put up my hand in class, like, a lot. I also used to enter and win ancient Greek recitation competitions. I once spent an entire party working my own personal German translation of Skater Boy by Avril Lavigne. So, no amount of denim miniskirt wearing or Lancome juicy tube also wearing could cover up the fact that I was a massive, massive nerd, and that I deserved to be socially shunned. No, okay, that's extreme, but no boyfriend. So when I've got a problem, I don't like to just let it sit. I like to attack it with as much research as I can. And so I decided to go nuclear. And at the time I was at my local comprehensive school, but I decided, because I had read about and massively romanticised boarding schools in books, that I was going to go to boarding school, and that was how I was going to solve my problem. So I did a lot of research on all the different boarding schools I could go to. I eventually chose this particular one because it was very beautiful. It was on the edge of the North Yorkshire moors, and it was also attached to a monastery, so it had this like brilliant like gothic vibe to it. And I thought, this is the perfect place for me to, get hold of my first boyfriend. And more importantly, it only took girls in the sixth form. And I told my mum that was a good thing, because it meant that there wouldn't be any pre-existing friendship groups for me to have to infiltrate when I got there. But the real reason, the secret reason, was because I thought that if there was no girls in their year group until I arrived, that they'd be just like completely thirsty, sex-starved, like desperate lads who would convulse with sexual frustration and gratitude at the sight of me. So, cunning plan. Anyway, it was all going fine, and I was all set to go and stuff. And beforehand, my parents actually knew someone who also had a girl who was going to the same school in the same year as me. So we arranged to have like a dinner together, and she and I could get to know each other quite well. And almost as soon as we were alone together, I realised that we weren't going to be friends. We definitely didn't click. We had nothing in common at all. We were sitting in adjacent armchairs in her living room, and I remember her leaning back really confidently on her armchair like this, like in this kind of sort of semi-maternal way, talking to me, being like, Listen, don't worry that you went to a state school. Just don't tell anyone and it'll be fine. And I was like, wow, I'm definitely not worried about having been to a state school until you pointed that out to me. Anyway, turns out that I did tell people that I went to a state school when I got there, and it was fine. Or I didn't like tell people all the time, but you know, if it came up, I would tell people. Although there was this one kid who, when I mentioned that I'd been to a state school, was like, what's it like? But other than that, everyone else was very normal. So, you know, that was fine. However, although she was wrong about that, I was wrong about a lot more about this school. So the first thing I was wrong about was that there were no pre-existing friendship groups. I had thought that all these girls didn't know each other because before I arrived at the school, I'd been sent an A4 document with the names and addresses and official titles of their parents of every single girl in my year at the school, and all these girls lived around the country. So I was like, there's no way that they go to the same school. Like, yeah, okay, there's a girl who goes to St Mary's School who lives in Shaftesbury, and there's someone else who goes to St Mary's School and she lives in Fulham, but like it's not going to be the same one. But of course I'd forgotten about the fact that you can go to boarding school before sixth form as well, and all of these girls did know each other. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But luckily for me, they weren't really that good friends with each other, so there was room for old Muggins here to get involved as a friend. So that was one area I was wrong in. The other area was the fact that the boys would be pleased to see us. They were irate, unbelievably seething that girls had been let into their school. And I was really confused by this. I was like, why would they care that we're here? Shouldn't they be glad? I don't get this at all. And basically, turns out that they were proud of their school and its famous proud tradition of being a single-sex boarding school. And so our very existence was polluting the reputation of their precious school. And so the way these boys demonstrated that feeling was to bellow incoherently at any of the girls as they walked by. Oh, apart from two, one of whom was just really fit, and the other one they had known before because she was unbelievably posh. So those two got off, but everyone else, they would scream at the girls. They made this special noise going like oh to make us feel rubbish, and they invented really horrible nicknames for every single girl, and then they would yell the nickname at you like in the canteen or just like when you're walking to lessons, stuff like that. Like my nickname was Don't Feed the Dogs because apparently I look like the blind woman from Road Trip, and at the time I was really humiliated by this nickname, and like it pained me so much, and I remember feeling physical pain if I could hear it being yelled. And I wished that I had been given like a more flattering nickname, like my friend whose nickname had been Blowjob Lips. And I thought, oh, well, at least it means they fancy her. But actually now I'm sort of feel okay with it because, first of all, that character from Road Trip is really cool. And secondly, the actor who plays her is not unattractive and in fact is chased by both Pedro and Napoleon Dynamite. So, you know, I have managed to be okay with it. So the boys were really mean, not what I expected. They were also very conservative, which surprised me a ridiculous amount. I was so naive. I was quite left-wing. I know I chose consciously to go to boarding school, but that was because I romanticised them in books. It wasn't because of social ideals generally. Okay, yeah, it was inconsistent, but I was 16, and I was really sad that everyone was so, I was like shocked that everyone was so conservative. And I heard there's a boy in our year whose dad was an MP, and I'd heard that his dad was a Liberal Democrat, which at the time was a good thing. And so I went to him and I was like, oh my god, your dad's a Lib Dem, that's great. And he was like, no, that is a vicious rumour. So that was a big shocker, but like actually it meant that we girls bonded a lot more quickly and we became really good friends. Like I made a great friend. She used to cackle like a witch really comically whenever anything was funny or when things weren't, quite often. And like there was this one time at lunch when she was upset about something and I went to her, oh, you don't worry, you shouldn't have such a defeatist attitude, which I know was a nerdy thing to say. And she looked at me and she went, gods, you say such buffy words. So that was like really nice and like a good byproduct that I didn't expect. The other thing was that most of the boys who had rejected us weren't really worth us being that sorry over anyway. There was this one guy who was so like morally opposed to girls being in the school that he didn't speak to a single girl for his entire sixth form career. And I won't say his real name. It's something like very German and very aristocratic, but his nickname was Schlurgs. And I hope that gives you a picture of the type of person he was. He really suited that nickname. That's the important information. And it's funny because posh people do seem to be really okay with having heinous nicknames, like really ugly ones like Ming or Muffy. And I think, like, even when they're not themselves suiting to the nicknames, but I feel like it's just a sign that they've got so much social prestige that they can just cope with that kind of nickname, which is maybe the attitude I should have had to being called Don't Feed the Dogs, but I was 16 and you live and learn. Anyway, the end of the story is that I did manage to get a boyfriend, because it turns out there were some boys who were not above getting off with us, so that was cool. However, this boyfriend, I realised, again, I had nothing in common with, and it was actually quite excruciating being with him because I had nothing to say to him. I remember panicking enormously, being sat down next to him by the tennis courts, being like, oh my god, like, we've got the whole like evening ahead and I don't want to talk to you anymore, this is awful, and having to just kiss him to fill the terrible silence that was like rising between us after one day of going out. But anyway, that one also got solved because we had a weekend away from school, and he went back to his parents in London. I went to mine in Gloucestershire, and he cheated on me with 8 girls in a game of spin the bottle. So I had a legitimate reason to break up with him, and all was fine. I moved on with my life and, finished boarding school and survived. So that's the end of my tale. Thank you so much for listening.
And that was Cordelia Graham talking about the horrors and delights of boarding school. So thank you very much, Cordelia. Thanks to all the acts that you've seen today. There was Kate McCabe at the top of the show. Then there was Jayne Pritchard, and finally Cordelia Graham. As I said, any links to other stuff that they want us to include, we will put in the description down there. If you want to find out more about what we're doing, like I said, the best way to follow this is obviously to subscribe and like it and get your notification. Well, the liking it's just for us really, but it does help. Get the notification bell on, as they say, and you can visit our talesofwhatever.com. We are Tales of Whatever on Twitter. We are pretty much Tales of Whatever anywhere you can think of. I think there's only the Instagram has an underscore before the Tales or Whatever bit, but yeah, lots of ways to find out what we're going to be doing, and we will try to as this rumbles along, we're going to keep trying to do these weekly, because we really miss doing the live shows, and we really miss hearing from our acts, who are wonderful and we love them. Go and have a look at episode 1 if you haven't done that already. That featured Jos Norris and Pope Lonergan and Simon Kane. I think in the future we're going to be trying to sort of slightly preface each week's new release with a kind of taster of who might be on in incoming episodes. We're really hoping this doesn't go on for ages and ages, because we want to be outside like you do. But in the meantime, obviously stay well, stay healthy, do stay in. It really helps keep things as much of an even keel as we possibly can. Do it for the frontline workers who are doing such a great job, battling to try and look after us and our families and friends. Any little thing that you can do to help is huge, actually. So bear with us and watch some more of this stuff. Most comics are doing something fun online, and if they're not, it's because they're having a well-earned rest. So you stay in, enjoy whatever content you enjoy, and we hope you'll come back and see another one of these with us soon. Thanks for spending time with us today, and we will see you around the same time next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.